I didn't scream. I didn't hesitate. I ran. The sound of the dumpster lid slamming shut echoed through the quiet street like a gunshot. I was already moving before my mind caught up with what my eyes had just seen. My knees protested. My lungs burned. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. I was chasing a trash bin. Because inside that dumpster, I had just watched my daughter-in-law throw away my granddaughter's baby blanket. I reached the dumpster just as the smell hit me. Rotting food, chemicals, something sweet and sour all at once. Disgust didn't matter. Pride didn't matter. My age definitely didn't matter. I shoved the lid open with more strength than I knew I still had and plunged my arms inside like a woman possessed. And there it was. That blanket. Mint green, handmade, crumpled like garbage, half buried beneath black plastic bags. The same blanket I had knitted stitch by stitch while whispering prayers over every loop of yarn. The same blanket my son used to swear could calm any crying baby like magic. I pulled it out, hugged it to my chest, and for a split second I laughed. A sharp, hysterical laugh. Because what kind of woman throws away a child's baby blanket with that much anger? Only someone trying to erase something. I didn't look back at the house. I didn't want to see her watching from a window. I got into my car, locked the doors like I was fleeing a crime scene, and drove home gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers went numb. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. When I laid the blanket out on my bed, smoothing the fabric the way I used to when my granddaughter was still small enough to fit in the crook of my arm, my fingers brushed against something that didn't belong. Something hard. Rectangular. Hidden. My breath caught. I pressed my palm flat against the blanket again. There was no mistake. Someone had sewn something inside it. Carefully. Deliberately. Like they never expected anyone to look too closely. I remember whispering, "What did you hide?" And then, because curiosity has always been my greatest flaw, I reached for the scissors. That night, I opened a seam that would tear my entire life apart. My name is Marianne Holt, and when all this began, I was already living inside grief. I was alone in a quiet house that echoed too much. Too many empty rooms. Too many memories that creaked louder at night than the old wooden floors. My only child, Daniel, had died years earlier. They said it was an accident. He fell down the stairs. That sentence had been repeated to me so many times it almost sounded believable. Almost. Daniel was brilliant. Calm. Careful to the point of annoyance. The kind of man who double-checked door locks and read instruction manuals for fun. He worked in healthcare, saved lives for a living, and somehow still found time to call his old mother every evening just to ask if I'd eaten. The idea that he would tumble down the stairs like a careless teenager never sat right with me. But grief doesn't ask for logic. It demands surrender. And I surrendered. His wife, Clara, had been the one to call me that afternoon. Her voice was shattered. Too shattered, maybe loud sobs, broken sentences, panic poured on thick like syrup. Something happened, he fell, he's not waking up. By the time I reached the hospital, my world had already ended. The doctor used the voice doctors use when they're about to steal something from you forever. Severe head trauma. Nothing could be done. I remember screaming. I remember collapsing. I remember Clara holding me, rocking back and forth, whispering that everything would be okay. It never was. Clara had always been polished. Too polished. When Daniel first introduced her to me, she smiled a lot. Not the nervous kind of smile. The rehearsed kind. She wore pale colors, spoke softly, laughed at the right moments. Everyone adored her. She's wonderful, people would say. She's lucky, they'd say too. As if marrying my son were a prize. Daniel was completely in love. I wanted to be happy for him. So I ignored the little things. Like how her eyes never smiled. Or how she never liked the blanket. She tolerated it. That's the word. When my granddaughter Lily was born, I gave them the blanket as a gift. Clara said thank you. Daniel said it was magical. He wrapped Lily in it constantly. Claimed it was the only thing that stopped her crying. After his death, the blanket disappeared. So did Clara. Slowly. Quietly. Like someone pulling away thread by thread. She started canceling visits. Always busy. Always tired. Always reorganizing her life. I told myself she was grieving. That grief makes people strange. But then she started looking at me differently, colder, as if I were an inconvenience that refused to fade away. And now, years later, I had watched her throw that blanket away with hatred in her eyes. That wasn't grief. That was fear. The scissors trembled in my hands as I cut. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that it was probably a toy, or some forgotten keepsake. Something harmless. Thread by thread, the seam opened. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure the neighbors could hear it. And then my fingers touched metal. Cold. Smooth. Impossible. I pulled it out slowly, like defusing a bomb. A phone. An old one. Black. Heavy. Powered off. I stared at it for a long time before whispering, "Oh no." Because suddenly, everything made sense. The distance. The lies. The way she'd watched me like I was a problem that wouldn't go away. This wasn't trash. This was evidence. And whatever was inside that phone was the reason my son never made it to the bottom of those stairs alive. I didn't know it yet, but that night I hadn't just rescued a blanket. I had rescued the truth. And Clara was about to regret every stitch she ever sewed. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed with the blanket spread out like a body on an autopsy table, and the phone resting in my palm, cold and accusing. Every few minutes, I glanced at the door, half expecting Clara to burst in and demand her secret back. I locked the house. Then I locked it again. That phone felt heavier than it should have, as if it carried more than metal and glass inside it. It carried intent. Think, Marianne, I whispered to myself. Just think. If she'd hidden it, she hadn't wanted it found. If she'd thrown it away, she'd panicked. Which meant something had changed. I rummaged through drawers until I found an old charger I'd kept for no good reason other than the habit of an aging woman who throws nothing away. For once, that habit saved me. I plugged it in. Nothing. I waited. My hands shook. My mouth went dry. I told myself this was silly, that it probably wouldn't even turn on, that I'd scared myself for nothing. Then the screen flickered. A faint glow. Charging. I laughed again, quietly this time. The brittle laugh of someone standing at the edge of a cliff. Well, I said to the empty room. Let's see what you didn't want me to see. The phone came to life without a password. No look. No hesitation. Almost as if it had been waiting. I went straight to the photo gallery. And that's when my heart broke for the first time all over again. There she was. Not crying. Not grieving. Not broken. Smiling. Clara sat at a candlelit table, wine glass raised, leaning into a man I didn't recognize. His arm was around her waist. Her head tilted toward him in a way I had seen only once before. The way she used to look at my son. The date stamped beneath the photo made my vision blur. It was taken while Daniel was still alive. Oh, I breathed. You didn't waste time. I swiped. Another photo. Another smile. Another place. A beach. A hotel mirror. A car. Her lips on his cheek. His mouth at her ear. Photos taken over weeks, months. A secret life documented with shameless precision. I felt sick. Not just because she'd betrayed my son, but because she'd been so comfortable doing it. Comfortable enough to save it all. Who are you? I whispered at the man's face. I didn't have an answer yet. But I would. I should have stopped there. I didn't. I tapped the video folder. The first clip opened to a familiar room. My son's living room. Their living room. The couch. The painting on the wall. The coffee table Daniel had insisted on assembling himself, even though he'd put it together wrong twice. The camera was fixed, hidden, watching. Then they entered the frame. Clara and the same man laughing. She wore a pale dress I recognized. I'd complimented it once. He kissed her. She pulled him down onto the couch. I slammed the phone face down on the bed. My chest hurt. My ears rang. I pressed my fist to my mouth and stared at the wall, willing myself not to scream. I'm sorry, I whispered, though I didn't know to whom. To my son. To myself. To the woman I used to be. When I picked the phone up again, my hands were steadier. Grief had turned into something sharper. Anger. The messages were worse. Names blurred together except one contact saved under a single letter. At first, the messages were what you'd expect. Sweet lies. Promises. Complaints about a marriage that was apparently such a burden. She wrote about my son as if he were furniture. An obstacle. A nuisance. Something in the way. Then the tone shifted. The words grew darker. I can't live like this anymore. I need this to end. He won't let me go. I scrolled. And then I read the sentence that made my blood run cold. There has to be another way. I need him gone. Gone. Not divorced. Not separated. Gone. My fingers slipped. The phone hit the bed. I stared at it like it had just spoken aloud. No, I said out loud. No, no, no. But the messages didn't stop. She pushed. She insisted. She planned. And then days later, Tuesday afternoon. He'll be alone. It has to look natural. I don't remember sitting down, but suddenly I was. My son didn't fall. My son was pushed. At dawn, I finally admitted the truth to myself. I couldn't do this alone. I called Ruth my neighbor of decades, the kind of woman who knows when to listen and when to act. She answered on the third ring, voice groggy. Marianne? Are you all right? No, I said. And I need you here. Now. She didn't ask questions. She showed up in slippers and a cardigan, hair pulled back hastily, eyes sharp the moment she saw my face. What happened? She asked. I didn't answer. I handed her the phone. She read. She watched. She went very, very quiet. This, she finally said, her voice low, isn't just infidelity. No. Irreplía. It's murder. While Ruth studied the phone, I retrieved the blanket from the bed. I think there's more, I said. We searched the seams carefully this time. And we found something else. Paper. Folded. Hidden. Slipped between layers like an afterthought. Documents. Insurance paperwork. My son's policy. The beneficiary name stared back at me. Clara. The payout amount was enough to make Ruth whistle softly. She didn't just want him gone, Ruth said. She wanted him profitable. And then I saw something else. Bank statements. Transfers. Large ones. Sent to an account under a man's name. The same man from the photos. Ruth Mermerd. That's your mystery lover. And my son's executioner, I said. I sat back, exhausted, my entire body aching with the weight of it. Clara hadn't thrown the blanket away, because she hated it. She'd thrown it away because she was scared. Something had shifted. Something had made her think the past was about to catch her. And she was right. Because I wasn't just a grieving mother anymore. I was a witness. And I was done being quiet. I looked at Ruth and said the words that changed everything. We're going to the police. She nodded slowly. Yes, she said. But first we find out who else she buried with that phone. The police didn't believe me at first. They listened, politely, professionally, but I could see it in their eyes. Another grieving mother clinging to coincidence. Another old woman chasing ghosts because she couldn't accept an accident. If I hadn't brought the phone, they would have sent me home with a pamphlet about counseling. But the phone changed everything. The photos. The messages. The note about timing. A detective with tired eyes and a voice like gravel finally leaned back in his chair and said, "We're reopening the case." I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt dread. Because reopening a grave doesn't just uncover bones. It uncovers everything buried with them. They told me not to contact Clara. Not to go near her house. Not to alert her in any way. She doesn't know we're looking yet, the detective said. Let's keep it that way. That lasted exactly 2 days. On the third morning, I drove past her house by accident. Or maybe by instinct. I still don't know. Her driveway was empty. Her curtains were drawn. Something about it felt wrong. Too quiet. I called Ruth from the car. She's up to something. You're sure? Ruth asked. I'm sure, I said. And I'm done waiting. I texted Clara. I miss Lily. Can I come by for a few minutes? The reply came faster than usual. Fine. Half an hour. I'm busy. Busy. That word again. I parked down the street and sat in the car for a moment, breathing through the knot in my chest. Smile. I told myself. Act normal. Pretend you don't know she killed your son. I rang the bell. Clara opened the door looking immaculate. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, dressed like she was going somewhere important. Not mourning. Not afraid. Just irritated. Come in, she said flatly. The house smelled like lavender and bleach. Too clean. Like someone scrubbing away fingerprints. Lily came running down the stairs when she saw me. Grandma, she shouted, throwing herself into my arms. I held her tighter than I ever had before. And that's when it hit me. She didn't look like Clara. She never had. I watched Lily play while Clara hovered nearby, scrolling through her phone, restless. Every few seconds, her eyes flicked toward the door. Toward the clock. Toward me. She was waiting for something. Or someone. Clara, I said casually. Do you still have Lily's baby documents? The hospital ones. Her hand froze mid-scroll. Why? She asked too quickly. Oh, nothing, I said. I was putting together a memory box. Thought it might be nice. Her smile returned, stiff-forced. I'll look for them later, she said. They're packed away. Lie. I knew at the moment she said it. That night, Ruth and I went through the documents we'd already found more carefully. And that's when we noticed the discrepancy. Dates that didn't line up. Timelines that didn't match. A birth certificate copy that looked off. The mother's name wasn't Clara's. It was someone else. A woman named Elena Cruz. My heart began to race. Who is Elena Cruz? Ruth asked softly. I don't know, I whispered. But I think she's Lily's real mother. We searched. And we found her. A local article buried deep online. Years old. Forgotten. Young woman reported missing after giving birth. Photo included. Dark hair. Gentle eyes. And a date. The same month Lily was supposedly born. I felt dizzy. Ruth, I said slowly. What if Clara didn't just kill my son? Ruth didn't answer. She didn't need to. The next article was worse. Remains discovered in abandoned lot. Case closed. Cause of death. Blunt force trauma. Same words they'd used for my son. Different location. Same ending. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from screaming. She didn't just steal a life, I whispered. She stole a child. And suddenly the blanket made sense. Not just a hiding place. A trophy. A safeguard. Something to control the past. We went back to the police. This time they didn't look at me like I was imagining things. They looked at me like I was standing on a landmine. They reopened another case. Then another. And then something unexpected happened. Clara tried to run. My phone rang just before dawn. It was the detective. We intercepted her, he said. She was headed out of the city. Had documents prepared. Cash. A bag packed for the child. My knees buckled. Is Lily safe? I asked. Yes, he said. But Mrs. Holt, there's more. There was always more. We believe your daughter-in-law may be responsible for additional deaths. I closed my eyes. How many? I asked. A pause. We don't know yet. They let me see the interrogation footage. Clara sat at the table, hands cuffed, posture perfect. When they mentioned the phone, her mask cracked. Just for a second. That old woman, she hissed. She should have minded her business. Old woman. Not grandmother. Not mother. Obstacle. The detective leaned forward. Why the blanket? She laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. Insurance, she said. Everyone needs leverage. And just like that, I understood. She hadn't underestimated me. She had forgotten me. Lily wasn't just my granddaughter. She was evidence. Living, breathing proof of theft, murder, and lies sewn together with careful hands. And now Clara had lost control of the narrative. I went home that night and stood in Lily's empty room. Her toys were still there. Her drawings. Her shoes by the door. I picked up the blanket, the old one, and folded it carefully. Don't worry, I whispered to the empty air. She won't touch you again. Because the hunt was over. And the reckoning was about to begin. The police searched Clara's house the way you search a place that has lied to you for years. Slowly, methodically, without mercy. I insisted on being there. The detective didn't like it. He said it wasn't necessary, that it might be emotionally difficult. I almost laughed. Emotionally difficult was burying my son. Emotionally difficult was raising a child who wasn't mine while wondering if the woman who gave birth to her was already dead. Watching walls get opened was easy. They found it in the basement. Hidden behind a bookshelf Clara had installed herself. The kind of detail that seemed decorative until you realized it was deliberate. A recessed steel safe. Flush with the wall. Invisible unless you knew exactly where to press. She planned this, the detective muttered. They opened it in less than half an hour. What they pulled out made the room go silent. Hard drives. USB sticks. Folders labeled in neat handwriting. Dates. Names. Amounts. It wasn't chaos. It was an archive. She kept records, I whispered. The detective nodded grimly. Some people like to relive their work. That sentence chilled me more than anything else that day. They connected one of the drives to a laptop. The first video file opened. Clara filled the screen. Not crying. Not afraid. Calm. Too calm. If you're watching this, she said evenly, it means something went wrong. She tilted her head slightly, like she was considering an interesting problem. I don't regret anything. I solved problems. That's all. My hands clenched so hard my nails cut into my palms. She named them. My son. The missing woman. Another man I'd never heard of. Patients from the hospital. Each name spoken without emotion. They were obstacles, she said. And obstacles are meant to be removed. The detective shut the laptop. That's enough, he said quietly. I couldn't breathe. She hadn't just killed. She'd documented it. Like trophies. The case exploded overnight. News vans lined the streets. Reporters tripped over each other trying to say her name first. The woman everyone trusted. The nurse. The wife. The mother. A monster with a manicure. The trial was scheduled quickly. Too quickly for me to prepare myself to see her again. When she entered the courtroom in cuffs, she didn't look at me. Not once. No apology. No scam. Only irritation. Like this entire thing was inconvenient. Her accomplice testified first. He cried. He shook. He blamed her. I was afraid of her, he said. She told me she'd ruin me if I didn't help. I believed him. Cowards don't invent fear like that. Then the videos played. The messages were read aloud. Every plan. Every payment. Every step toward my son's death laid bare in public. People gasped. I didn't. I already knew. It happened when they showed the footage about the child. About Lily. The prosecutor asked, why keep the blanket? For the first time, Clara reacted. Her jaw tightened. Her fingers curled into fists. That child, she snapped, was mine. The courtroom froze. The prosecutor leaned in. She wasn't. Clara smiled. A thin, furious thing. She was when I took her. That was the moment the jury decided. I saw it in their faces. Guilty. On every count. Multiple life sentences. No parole. No merci. When the judge finished reading the sentence, Clara finally looked at me. Her eyes were empty. You think you won, she said quietly as they led her away. I stood. I didn't, I replied. She did. I was talking about Lily. They brought Lily to me that night. She ran into my arms like she always had. Small hands clutching my sweater, face buried against my chest. Am I staying with you now? She asked. Yes, I said. Forever. She smiled. And just like that, the worst chapter of my life ended. Years passed. Lily grew. She laughed. She learned. She healed. I kept the blanket. Not as evidence. As a reminder. That evil hides in ordinary places. That truth can be stitched into silence. And that sometimes the smallest act, reaching into a dumpster, can save a life. I thought the story was over. I was wrong. Because the past always leaves one final gift. And I wouldn't understand it until Lily came to me one day, holding something wrapped in mint green yarn. I used to think stories like this ended with prison doors slamming shut. Justice served. Monster locked away. Fade to black. Real life doesn't work that neatly. Real life keeps going. Raising Lily wasn't heroic. It was ordinary. And that was the miracle. School lunches. Scraped knees. Homework arguments. Bedtime stories read twice, because once was never enough. She grew the way children are supposed to grow. Slowly, stubbornly, beautifully. There were nightmares at first. She'd wake up crying, calling for a mother whose name I wouldn't say out loud yet. I'd hold her and hum nonsense tunes, the same ones I used to sing to her father when he was small. "I'm here," I'd whisper. "I'm not going anywhere." And I meant it. Over time, the nightmares faded. So did the reporters. So did the whispers. So did the shadow Clara cast over our lives. But the blanket stayed. One evening, when Lily was older, old enough to ask careful questions, she sat on the edge of my bed holding the blanket in her lap. "You made this, didn't you?" she asked. "I did," I said. She traced the stitches with her finger. Why did she hide things in it? There it was. The moment I'd been preparing for. I took a breath. Because she was afraid of the truth. Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Did it save me?" I swallowed hard. "Yes," I said. "It did." She nodded like that made sense. Children understand more than we give them credit for. When Lily was old enough, I told her about Elena, the woman who gave birth to her. I didn't tell her everything at once. Just enough. That Elena had loved her. That Elena had wanted her safe. That Elena hadn't disappeared by choice. Lily listened with tears in her eyes. "Do you think she would have liked me?" she asked. I smiled through my own tears. "I think she would have been proud of you." That was the truth. Years later, long after the trial, long after the pain dulled into something bearable, Lily handed me a box wrapped in lavender paper. "I made something for you," she said. Inside was a blanket. Mint green. Hand-knitted. Nearly identical to the one that had started everything. "I learned because of you," she said. "I wanted to make one that didn't have secrets in it." I laughed and cried at the same time. "This one," she added, "is just love." That night, I laid both blankets side by side. The old one, heavy with truth, pain, justice. The new one, light, warm, free. Same color. Different stories. I used to think that evil announced itself. That monsters looked like monsters. They don't. They look like nurses. They smile at dinner tables. They throw baby blankets into dumpsters and assume no one will notice. They forget about women like me. Women who knit. Women who watch. Women who remember. I didn't set out to be brave. I just loved my son. And I loved a child enough to reach into the trash and refuse to let her future be buried. Sometimes, late at night, I still run my fingers over the old blanket seams. They're smooth now. Empty. No lies hidden inside. Just yarn and memory. And when Lily, grown, strong, alive, hugs me and calls me home, I know something important. The truth didn't just expose a monster. It built a family. And that is the ending Clara never planned for. Please click the subscribe button, like, share, and comment. This will encourage me to make more interesting stories. Also, let's know where you are watching from. Thank you and see you in the next story.